South Africa and Happy New Year. Behind me, the devastation at CrossFit Bryanston as we do a renovation. But now, let's get into the New Year's topic. Today we're discussing athleticism versus aesthetics. All of you are going to be training, and all of you are going to be hitting new and different training goals and all that kind of stuff. A lot of you are going to be hunting training to look good. I want to discourage you from that and rather get you to train for performance. By training for performance, you'll be able to manage your goals easier and you'll be able to tick things off your list. If you're training to look good, you're going to be weighing in, you're going to be doing all sorts of stuff on the scale, and that's kind of discourage you. The problem is it took you a while to get out of shape, so it's going to take you a bit longer to get back into shape. And if you're just doing it to look in the mirror and that kind of stuff, you're going to actually be shooting yourself in the foot. But if you actually look for performance goals, it's going to actually allow you to take one step after another and realize the new you that you clearly want to for the new year. In the series Aesthetic versus Aesthetic, we're going to be covering the physiology behind how muscles work. And that's going to give you an idea of how nutrition plays a part and why flexibility training is also key to improving your training. So let's get into it. So basically, rudimentary art time as we look into the physiology of a muscle. What we've got here in a double coiled, double helix sort of thing is a myosin filament. We're then going to draw in, for want of a better diagram, a blue line. The blue line is going to represent the actin filament. Skeletal muscle is striated. It's made up of two different protein filaments. That's what gives it its striped appearance. It's these protein filaments, and especially these gumdrops, shall we say, these are the heads of the myosin filament. These are going to attach to the blue, the actin, and they're going to, once that attachment has happened, they're going to move, and that movement is going to cause the fibers to slide over each other, and that's how you get the shortening of muscles when there's contraction happening, whether you're doing bicep curls, whether you're talking, whether you're playing with pens or anything like that. That's basically what's happening in the muscle. As we go in, we'll get rid of this. All that happens, simplified, is the head of the myosin will attach itself to the actin filament when the signal comes down from the brain that something's going to happen. We need to cross the road, we need to actually go and do a bench press. When that has happened, that attachment from the signal of the brain, we then get the movement when the myosin heads bend, shall we say, they kind of undergo their own sort of bicep curl and they cause a movement. And then it's pretty much done. It's a once-off sort of deal. The deal is though, there's thousands and millions of these things. Obviously it's a very rudimentary diagram, but this continuous attaching, move and detaching is happening all the time while we do exercise. How this translates to nutrition is that the body is using ATP, adenosine triphosphate. If we take an adenosine group, we have 3 phosphates on it. So ATP, which is the main energy provider of the human body. Everything happens, whether we're anaerobic or aerobic, we'll get to that in later videos. Everything is all down to making as much ATP as possible so that we can do what we need to do. And we get ATP from either the stored energy in our muscles or via different metabolic pathways, which we'll also cover later on. But for now, we're laying the groundwork, the background. The ATP will break down in a chemical reaction and donate a phosphate away and become adenosine diphosphate, ADP. And we need to then work on resynthesizing that back to ATP. And there's a bunch of ways to do it. So that's where nutrition comes in. Nutrition is going to give us this. We also use supplementation. If we're using creatine, which is found naturally in the human body, creatine is also called creatine phosphate or phosphocreatine. It's basically, creatine phosphate is a creatine group with a phosphate on it. And when we've had activity happening and we've got a lot of buildup of adenosine diphosphate, ADP, which basically translates to the adenosine with 2 phosphates over there. Creatine phosphate is then going to donate its phosphate to that adenosine group and thus make ATP. And we're efficient again, we're ready to rock and roll, and this will go off and re-pick up another phosphate. This is all happening every single second of the day, every time movement happens. This is happening when you're anaerobic, when you just start doing stuff, and ATP is getting synthesized later via aerobic metabolism when oxygen is present in the metabolic pathway. We'll get to that in more detail later. How this translates from a movement force generation perspective, it's about length-tension relationship. If we have the correct length of the fibers, we can develop tension. So if we have optimal length-tension relationship, we'll have a bunch of myosin filaments and we'll have a bunch of actin. And it's easy for you to see that there can be a lot of what is termed cross bridges. There can be a lot of those heads attaching because we can do it, and thus we can get optimum force generation. If you get hyperflexible people, which is a bit out there, but it does happen, you tend to have the actin out here, and the myosin is a bit too far away. So we can't get that good cross-bridging. We can't get that attachment. If we can't get the heads to attach, we can't generate force. And vice versa, if we don't have optimum length, i.e. we've been training and we haven't stretched to go back to our homeostatic position before we were training, our position of rest, then everything's going to be bunched up on each other and we're not actually going to be able to develop as much force as we need to do. So from that point of view, when you stretch after a workout, you're not exactly stretching to improve your flexibility and really get into the splits or something like that. You're actually returning your body to your position of rest before exercise so that you can continue to generate good force. Later on, if you then pay more attention to mobility and flexibility stuff, you will get better and more flexible and have less injury prevention. Done. So that is the first video in the athletic versus aesthetic series. Really trying to encourage you to train more for performance. Get an understanding of why you're doing certain things. Don't just go into the gym and just do something. It's great to try different things, but understand why you're doing it. There's got to be purpose to your training. Training without a goal is mind-numbing and it's boring, and you are going to get away from it as quickly as possible. Rather, set small, sustainable, manageable, and achievable goals, and that will help you continue along your fitness journey and let you reach the results that you want. So for Breaking Muscle, see you next time.